What's going on, guys? Welcome to Everything Always. My name is Michael Roman, aka All Fires. Now, the Russos have promised that Avengers Doomsday is going to deal with the wake of Tony Stark's death. And a lot of us took that to mean also addressing why in the world Victor Von Doom has Tony Stark from the 616th face. But something has always bothered me about this fact. Why would you want Tony Stark's face? Indeed, a lot of the characters in the MCU from the Infinity Saga had deep emotional ties and/or history on the battlefield alongside Tony Stark and Iron Man. But when it comes to the Multiverse Saga, most of these characters are newly introduced, new to the Avengers party, so to speak, don't have any history with Tony Stark other than knowing who he was as a part of the MCU and a symbol of the Avengers. And outside of that, the characters that hang over that have been influential and during this part of the saga, say like Doctor Strange, don't have as an emotional tie as say a character like obviously Spider-Man. But for reasons we'll get into during this video, unless there's something we don't know about Peter Parker, and given his predicament basically resetting himself to a complete anonymous in the 616, he certainly doesn't have enough influence or reason to merit Victor Von Doom specifically choosing Tony Stark's face. And outside of Spider-Man, characters that were closest to Tony Stark, say like Rhodey and Pepper Potts, surely don't have much to do with the fate of the universe as we enter Avengers Doomsday. So again, it begs the question, why did Victor Von Doom specifically choose Tony Stark from the 616th face? Well, we think we figured out the answer. And if true, there is one specific character he needs by his side that will create a domino effect where his influence will be absolute as he looks for followers on his conquest to build Battle World. We're going to break it all down. The reason why Victor Von Doom specifically chose Tony Stark's face. But first, if you could grab the subscribe button, we do daily Marvel content at the channel. That's all we do. Thanks to everyone who's been helping grow the channel again at a breakneck pace. And if you haven't already, I would just kindly invite you to do so. Whether this is your first time finding the channel or you've been rocking with us for a while, I would sincerely appreciate your sub. It's the best way to support us. Plus, it'll end you for the giveaways. All you got to do be a sub, leave a comment if you want, stick around to the end of the video. We get into all the giveaway stuff again there. Now, two things before we jump into this. First of all, we've seen from variants across the multiverse in canon that sometimes they happen to look like each other. Go back to Loki Season 1 and some of the variants he was introduced to were mirror images of Tom Hiddleston. So, it could be the case that Victor Von Doom happens to look exactly like Tony Stark. And while there was an argument, at least for a while, that we really only saw variants that looked like doppelgangers when they were of the same entity, we've seen now that Chris Evans is both Steve Rogers and Johnny Storm, depending on where you're at in the multiverse, not different variants of the same character, and they do look exactly the same. So, that logic is out the window, and there is canonical basis to say that that could be the case. But I think it is also fair to say that is not a very compelling storyline, and there's got to be an obvious reason why Victor Von Doom is now appearing as Tony Stark, and we're going to take that line of logic thinking that the Russos and everybody else don't want to just call it a coincidence. And by that very same logic, while they could choose to completely cover RDJ's face in scars and disfigurement as Dr. Doom has presented in the comics from time to time, you don't pay RDJ money to come back and play Dr. Doom and then cover his face. It's very obvious that him looking like Tony Stark is part of the story. So, we're going to proceed with that as our basis of logic going forward. He needs Tony Stark's face for a specific reason, and if it's Tony Stark's face, then it means that that has to have influence over specific people and characters. But let's look at the 616 right now and who it could matter most to. Again, Spider-Man is the very obvious character with Peter Parker, but he's reset himself into basically being a complete unknown in the landscape of superheroes. Even if he is the anchor being in the 616, then surely it would be as easy as killing him. You wouldn't need to steal Dr. Doom's face to influence him to fight on your side, which is the reason you would present as his friend and mentor, Tony Stark. Then you look at the two superhero teams in the 616 as well, the two Avengers teams. One of them is basically headed up by Yelena Bova, again, no history with Tony Stark and Bucky, who was on the opposite side of the Civil War battle, and unless they had some sort of making up off-screen, fought side by side in many battles, but never really ever reconciled in a way that we saw. And we've talked about this in the history of the MCU. Some characters have been in the same place at the same time, but have not shared on-screen dialogue simply because there is not enough time for it. And the other Avengers right now are led by none other than Sam Wilson's Captain America. Again, a character that was on the opposite side of Civil War on Team Cap. And if they had some sort of big reconciling as they pressed forward, it wouldn't have been during the beginning of Avengers Endgame. Remember, Sam and Bucky were both snapped. And then Tony Stark died right as they were unapt. So again, unless something happened off-screen after Civil War and before Infinity War. And it's unlikely because Tony Stark wouldn't even call Cap, let alone these other two, they probably weren't on the best of terms. Or rather, we don't really know how Sam and Bucky felt at the time. They may have sort of softened up about it now, but just keep in mind they would have fought during Civil War. Then they would have been incarcerated with Tony Stark basically a part of that. Then they would have been on the run as the Secret Avengers and Bucky was in Wakanda, and then they got snapped back into existence when Tony Stark died. So there was really no sort of comeback, no discussion about what happened. You can imagine that if Tony Stark or Victor Von Doom as Tony Stark showed up right now to try to have influence over either of the leaders of these two new Avengers teams, I guess the Avengers and the New Avengers, that it wouldn't be that great of a present. Surely there were other characters that would mean more to both Bucky and Sam Wilson, like Steve Rogers, Captain America. And that's why Victor Von Doom specifically needs Tony's face, that he needs to sway Captain America. Steve Rogers' variant that is now back in time alongside Peggy to fight alongside him, so he can bring Steve alongside him to the 616, and instantly he will have both Avengers teams because Bucky's on one and Sam's on the other, convinced and joining his side, because really they'll be following Steve and Steve will be following Victor Von Doom because Steve will be convinced that Victor Von is a hero. Victor Von Doom is Tony Stark. Now, why would Victor Von Doom need Steve Rogers and two Avengers teams, and presumably maybe by extension the Fantastic Four, all to be siding with him? Who's he going up against that he needs all these heroes? Well, clearly the villain that they're going up against is our now new hero in Loki. Loki has not had a chance to redeem himself the way that we saw in Loki Season 1 and Season 2 in the eyes of most of the Avengers. In fact, what they'll remember is that Loki invaded New York and was a villain in Avengers 1. So, if you had someone who looks like Tony Stark show up to Steve Rogers and say, Loki is the main villain. He's now controlling the multiverse. He's causing incursions, wiping out trillions of lives, and I need your help to defeat Loki in order to set the multiverse free. Steve Rogers, looking at a doppelganger of Tony Stark, would be inclined to help. Coming fresh off of a battle with Thanos, knowing that he'd returned the Infinity Stones, but that Loki is still a threat, and now with the report that he would be at the center of the multiverse and that they need all the heroes to battle him, well, you can see why he would then take Steve to the two new Avengers teams. But where the rub of all of this goes is that as soon as the Fantastic Four make contact with our Avengers, and we know that's happening 100% because Kevin Feige has confirmed some of our heroes are going back to the 828, then it'll be pretty clear that Dr. Doom is a villain and not a hero. And I think it'll just be a case of racing to see who gets to whom first and which side they take. But you guys let me know all your thoughts down below about this theory. Again, there's got to be a specific reason he wants Tony Stark's face, and it's definitely not Spider-Man. Outside of Spider-Man, to me, the only person left that matters right now in this moment is Steve Rogers. Of course, it won't hurt when the OGs like Hawkeye and Thor and Hulk all see Tony Stark's face, but they don't have the same influence and won't the way that Steve Rogers will over the two current Avengers teams that happen to have Bucky and Sam Wilson, his two closest friends, at the head of both of them. You let me know all your thoughts down in the comments quickly. Let's get into the giveaway stuff before I let you go. Alright, we are still giving away PlayStation 5s here at the channel. All you got to do to be entered to win, be a sub, leave a comment because it's truly random. The more videos you comment on, the better chance you have of winning. All winners will always be announced at the end of videos the same way we're doing here live with my voice and the winning comments shown on screen. Hit the notification bell with all notifications turned on to keep up with the videos. And of course, if you like today's video, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button. My name is Michael Roman. Find me on Instagram and Twitter at IamFires. Find me on all other platforms under the name All Fires with original music. And while I would sincerely appreciate you checking my music out, including the song in the background right now, thanks to those of you who already have. You are helping it go viral. You guys are the best. I'm still trying to make it a music, believe it or not. Here we are. To everyone who's helping me out, I can't thank you enough. Thanks for checking that out, thanks for checking this channel out, stick around. We'll be posting again real soon, music, without swords and shields. But the really nice falling away.